a place of battle, blood, and bravery. But what secrets does the Colosseum hold that you don't know? The Colosseum is a famous amphitheater in Rome and a representation of an empire. It has served as a monument to the power and culture of ancient Rome for centuries, but it's not only made of sand and stone. Let's explore the unknown stories of this illustrious stadium. The site of the Colosseum was previously covered by a vast man-made lake that was a part of Emperor Nero's lavish Domus Aurea, or Golden House royal complex. The Domus Aurea was a lavish and expansive house that had lush gardens, a massive statue of Nero, the Colossus of Nero, and even the artificial lake. It was constructed after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. Rome was mostly destroyed by a terrible fire that raged through the city in 64 AD. By ordering the building of the Domus Aurea, Nero took advantage of the chance to annex a sizable portion of central Rome. Due to suspicions that Nero had ordered the fire to be ignited, the Roman public already mistrusted him, and this act furthered their unhappiness. As Nero's authority grew more oppressive, it stoked widespread resentment and eventually sparked an uprising. He committed suicide in 68 AD when the Senate labeled him as an enemy of the state. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, which had ruled Rome from its founding, came to an end with his passing. The Year of the Four Emperors, a period of civil conflict and unrest brought on by this, ended with Vespasian's ascent to power and the establishment of the Flavian dynasty. We must first understand the Flavian dynasty in order to comprehend how the Colosseum came to be. The Flavian dynasty was a Roman imperial dynasty that ruled the Roman Empire between 69 AD and 96 AD. The Colosseum was built during the tenure of Emperor Vespasian and his sons Titus and Domitian. The Flavian dynasty was started by Vespasian, also known as Titus Flavius Vespasianus. After a civil war known as the Year of the Four Emperors that lasted a whole year, he was elected emperor. After Emperor Nero committed suicide in 68 AD, there was a power vacuum that resulted in a brief period of disorder and civil unrest, with 4 different people taking the throne in quick succession. Vespasian, a seasoned military leader who was in charge of the Roman army during the Jewish War, was proclaimed emperor by his soldiers and eventually defeated his opponents. During his reign, Vespasian restored stability to the empire, improved its finances, and initiated several building projects, most notably the Colosseum. He also formally deified his predecessor, Claudius, possibly to legitimize his own rule and that of his descendants. Vespasian sought to distance himself from the excesses of Nero's reign and store stability and public favor. He decided to repurpose the site of the Domus Aurea for public use. The artificial lake was drained and the construction of the Flavian amphitheater began. The name Colosseum came later, and it is thought to have been derived from the Colossus of Nero, a gigantic statue that stood nearby. It was officially dedicated to the Roman people as a place of entertainment and spectacle. This decision was a strategic one, symbolizing the return of the land to the people and a shift away from the self-indulgence of Nero's reign. After Vespasian passed away, Titus, who was born Titus Flavius Vespasianus like his father, took over as emperor. Despite its brief duration, Titus's reign was notable for a number of important things. In 70 AD, he finished conquering Jerusalem and put an end to the Jewish war that his father had started. He also dealt with the Mount Vesuvius explosion in 79 AD, which caused Pompeii and Herculaneum to be destroyed. Titus also had to deal with the plague outbreak and a fire in Rome. Despite these difficulties, he was well liked by the people of Rome, and his passing was deeply lamented. Domitian, born Titus Flavius Domitianus, was the younger son of Vespasian and succeeded his brother Titus. Domitian's reign was marked by a significant increase in the emperor's power and authority. He took on the role of censor for life, giving him control over the Senate and moral authority over Rome. His reign also saw significant military successes on the frontiers, but he faced internal discontent and was ultimately assassinated in a palace conspiracy. Domitian's assassination marked the end of the Flavian dynasty. He was succeeded by Nerva, who was the first of the 5 good emperors. The Flavians left a lasting impact on the Roman Empire. They stored stability after a period of unrest, strengthened the economy, and undertook significant building projects, the most famous of which is the Colosseum. Despite their relatively short time in power, the Flavians played a crucial role in shaping the Roman Empire during a pivotal period in its history. An act of political genius was the construction of the Colosseum. The Jewish War, which came to an end in 70 AD with the siege of Jerusalem, was compensated for by Vespasian and Titus with the loot. The transformation of Nero's private playground into a public area was a gift to the people of Rome. The excesses of the past were over, and the new era would be one of stability and public service. It symbolized a return of the land and wealth back to the people from the corrupt rule of Nero. The Colosseum served largely as a location for open-air shows, such gladiatorial matches, animal hunts, and fictitious naval wars. The emperor or other wealthy sponsors frequently offered these festivities for free as a way of winning over the Roman people because they were so well liked by them. By providing such amusement, the public could be calmed and social order could be preserved. The Colosseum served as both a venue for entertainment and a representation of Rome's strength and might. The games frequently included exotic creatures from all throughout the empire, showing the expansiveness of Roman control. The gladiatorial fights demonstrated the discipline and martial skill that were essential to Rome's success as a military force. The city's economy benefited from the Colosseum's building as well. Construction needed a sizable labor force, and the gladiatorial contests themselves produced revenue from the sale of food and drink to the manufacture of the gladiators' armor and costumes. The games have a religious component as well. They featured ceremonies and rituals meant to appease the gods and were frequently devoted to them. For instance, Titus personally killed a bull as a sacrifice to the gods during the opening ceremonies of the Colosseum in AD 80. Construction started in AD 72 under Vespasian and was largely completed by his son Titus in AD 80. The amphitheater was officially inaugurated by Titus with a grand celebration lasting 100 days, featuring gladiatorial contests, animal hunts, and even sea battles. However, the Colosseum wasn't fully completed until AD 96 under the rule of Vespasian's younger son, Domitian. The Colosseum is not just another historic building, it's a feat of engineering. From its elevator and trapdoor-equipped underground hypogeum to its sophisticated aqueduct system that could flood the arena for naval engagements. Yes, there were real ship fights within the Colosseum. The majority of the labor force was made up of Jewish slaves who had been taken prisoner following the siege of Jerusalem in AD 70. However, there were also jobs for skilled workers, designers, and engineers. The building was paid for by the proceeds in the Jewish War, notably with sizable goods from the Temple of Jerusalem. Concrete, tufa, a type of volcanic rock, and travertine limestone were the main building materials used to build the Colosseum. A sizable labor force was used to carry the travertine limestone to the construction site from a quarry in Tivoli, which is roughly 20 miles outside of Rome. A combination of lime, water, and volcanic ash was utilized to create the concrete, which was a Roman invention. The arches and other buildings were made using this material that was poured into wooden molds. A far larger and sturdier structure was made possible by the use of arches and concrete than would have been conceivable with conventional building methods. The Colosseum was intended to be an engineering wonder. Its dimensions were roughly 189 meters or 620 feet long, 156 meters or 513 feet wide, and 50 meters or 164 feet high. It had an oval shape. At full capacity, it could accommodate 50,000 to 80,000 spectators. The amphitheater had 3 levels of arcades, with Doric on the first level, Ionic on the second, and Corinthian on the third, each with arches framed by columns of a different order. A 4th level with tiny windows and Corinthian columns was the attic. On the 2nd and 3rd level of the arches, statues ornamented the facade. The Colosseum makes heavy use of the arch, which evenly distributes weight and offers stability. 3 tiers of arches and a level with tiny rectangular windows make up the exterior. Half columns of the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian orders served as the frames for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd levels of arches, respectively. Corinthian pillars were used to embellish the attic floor, which is the highest level. The arena itself was made of a hardwood floor that was coated in sand. The word arena comes from the Latin word arena for sand. This floor was actually the hypogeum, a maze-like network of tunnels and chambers. This subterranean building, known as the hypogeum, underground tunnels and chambers, included multiple prison cells, animal enclosures, and gladiator quarters. Additionally, there were more than 80 vertical shafts that gave animals and scenery quick access to the arena. Animals unexpectedly emerging on the arena floor was one of the dramatic special effects made possible by complicated gear-like elevators and pulleys. The arrangement of the chairs reflected the class stratification of Roman society. Senators had access to the podium, the best seats, which were located at the arena level. The knights or equestrians were seated above them in the Maenianum Primum. The Maenianum Secundum, which was further segmented according to wealth, was home to the general Roman citizens or plebs. Women and the poorest residents were only allowed in the topmost section, known as the Maenianum Secundum in Legnage, which was made of wood. A velarium, a massive retractable canvas awning, might be erected over the Colosseum to shade the spectators. 240 masts were attached around the top of the stone building to hold this enormous shadow. Because the rigging of the velarium resembles ship sails, it's thought that sailors from the neighboring Roman naval base at Misenum would handle it. The Colosseum is a monument to the technological and building prowess of ancient Rome, since it combines architectural genius, engineering proficiency, and the usage of concrete. Even now, contemporary architects and engineers research the Colosseum to learn about its resilience and design principles. While gladiatorial combats are famous, the Colosseum was a diverse stage. Wild animal hunts, elaborate plays, mock sea battles, and even public executions. But a little-known fact, the sand in the arena wasn't just for show. It helped absorb the, well, blood from these spectacles. The Colosseum possessed a sophisticated subsurface hydraulic system that, according to historians, could quickly flood the arena for naumachiae, or simulated naval combat. It's difficult to imagine, but the arena might be flooded to become a navigable lake for ships. The Colosseum used to conduct elaborate mock naval battles with actual ships and men early in its history. However, after the apoggeum was built, this usage was no longer necessary. Animal hunts were staged hunts using exotic animals that had been brought into the empire from all over. During these hunts, referred to as venationes, professional hunters, venators, or gladiators frequently engaged in combat with wild beasts, including lions, tigers, bears, and elephants. The occasions occasionally took the form of hunts with settings and props meant to simulate natural ecosystems. These occurrences showed Rome's power by demonstrating its ability to rule and dominate nature. Public executions, which were frequently staged for entertainment, were also held there. During the game's lunch break, condemned criminals, prisoners of war, or slaves were occasionally put to death. Before being put to death, the condemned would frequently act out historical or mythological characters in these executions. Dramatic productions at the Colosseum are also thought to have occasionally hosted more conventional entertainment, like plays or musical events. These occurrences, nevertheless, were less frequent than the bloody shows that the Colosseum is well known for. Also used as a backdrop for religious and political activities was the Colosseum. Emperors utilized the games to acquire public favor and to show off their strength and generosity. The games were frequently held in conjunction with important political or religious holidays. There is little historical evidence to back up the allegation that many early Christians were martyred in the Colosseum, despite Christian tradition to the contrary. However, the Colosseum has come to be associated with Christian martyrdom, and Pope Benedict XIV declared it a sacred location in 1749. From architectural wonder to a stage of myriad tales, the Colosseum remains an enduring link to a past world. Its stones whisper tales of bravery, tragedy, and the unmatched legacy of an empire. So, the next time you think of the Colosseum, remember, it's more than just an old arena. It's a time capsule of stories waiting to be told. If you loved the tour, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more wonderful explorations throughout the world. This is the Wanderlust Journals, signing off.